Building our worksheets, moving average. In this lesson, we are going to be creating a worksheet to show moving average mobility metrics numbers. We will then be replicating this worksheet as we've done with the previous two for each of our 6 mobility metrics. So let's go back to Tableau. The first thing we are going to want to do is to create a parameter so that we can set the number of days we are going to calculate our moving average from. So let's do the following. Create a parameter, call it moving average days. Let's turn this to integer and let's take a 7-day moving average. The reason we're doing this is because if you look at the daily chart, there will be peaks and troughs. If you do a 7-day rolling average, it will give you a smoother curve and more representative without these spikes, although the spikes is valid data in itself. However, let's create a parameter. This will allow us to dynamically change this if required. Let's click OK. Typically I put an @ sign in front of my parameters to make it easier to find. Now let's start with parks, as we always do for some strange reason. We are going to want to create a moving average calculated field. So let's right click, create calculated field. Let's copy the text. Let's paste it into the name. And let's just add to it moving average. This is where we'll need to use a Windows calculation. So let's use Windows average function. And then in terms of our timeline, we want minus our parameter in terms of number of days, and then closing brackets. Just make sure we close the brackets properly. Now let's just walk through this briefly. We want an average of the park percentage change, which is what we're doing. We want the moving average in terms of a start and end. We want to start minus 7 days in our case to 0 days. So we're taking 7 days, or at least 7 units or cells, 7 points of data within our data visualization. And then we're using a window average. So this is quite an elegant way of doing this. And again, Windows average minus 7 days, or whatever's in our parameter, to 0. So it could be 14 days. And in terms of how we're aggregating our metric, we're just using an average. So as we know, Windows calculation allows us to take whatever's in the view and put a calculation on top. So let's actually click OK. Now that we have the moving average for parks, let's replicate this for our other key metrics, and then we are going to start building out our data visualization. So let's duplicate this. Let's drag this in. Let me just scroll up, right click, add to folder. Let's put it into the grocery section for now. Let's edit. Remove the copy, we don't need that anymore. Well, we never needed it, to be fair. Let's call this grocery and pharmacy. In the calculation, start typing groceries. Make sure you choose the one without the equal sign, i.e. the original from the data source. That's nice and beautiful. Let's click OK. Now we just need to replicate this 4 more times. So duplicate. Let's add this to residential folder. Let's edit. Rename. And make sure we change the calculation. Use residential. And again, nice and easy. Once you get into a rhythm, this becomes just nice and natural. Folders, add to folder, transit stations. transit stations, and finally our workplace. Nice and simple. So we've created our calculations. Let's just drag this into the folder. Let's just take away the stations. Again, let's keep the name convention nice and clean. Now that we have these, let's have some fun. Let's start building out our moving average. So let's go to parks, for example. Let's right click and let's duplicate. Let's take this all the way to the end. And let's call this moving average parks. Nice and simple. What I want to do now is, let me just see if I can remove the area chart because I don't need it anymore. Now let's take parks moving average baseline and drop that to the right. So now we have this interesting data visualization. We have the average for parks and then the moving average. So with the moving average, I want to take the average and I want to turn this to be a form of gray. So therefore, when we're looking at the moving average view, we can still see the daily data, but then you can see the moving average on top. Let's right click. Let's dual axis. Let's synchronize our axes. And this is something that Tableau does annoy me with. I don't want the measure names to be added, but Tableau seems to want to do it always. So let's remove that. Let's hide the headers as before. And now we have our moving average for our parks. As you can see in the background, we have our daily and then our 7-day moving average, or X number of days depending on what you're looking for. So now, repetition is key. Let's duplicate this and let's repeat this for our 5 other data visualizations. So groceries and pharmacy. As you can see, once we build out our worksheets, then we are also going to assemble it in the next section. But the key is just to get into a flow, try to make this nice and easy. FYI, I have spent many a nights going through stuff like this, making sure that all my data is perfect, make sure that everything is accurate, and then just replicating. And when I say replicating, I've done this thousands of times. So that's 2. Let's keep going. Residential is next. Residential. Let's replace this baseline up on top. Remember to right click and change the aggregation type to average. You could also change the default type as well if you require. I forgot retail. We are going to do that in a second, do not worry. That's residential. Make sure they're still synced up. Hide the header. Remove the title. Again, practice makes perfect. It makes you a lot quicker. So I forgot to actually do a retail and recreation, so we are going to create that now. Surprised that I forgot that. So let's duplicate this calculation. Let's edit this. Retail, recreation. Yeah, let's create a moving average. Let's duplicate the sheet. Rename this retail and recreation. I thought I was going insane, but let's add that to our folder. Retail and recreation. You can see we're getting very close to finishing all of our worksheets. Let's take that into and replace. Right click, average. Let's do the same on the other side. Synchronize, perfect, hide headers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more, and then we are done. The main thing here is that once we've built our basic worksheets, then it becomes very easy to just put them onto our data visualization or onto our dashboards, so to speak. Transit stations, we've duplicated, drag on, turn that to an average, take the moving average, drop it in, make sure that everything is perfect, hide header, take away the title, and the last one, and that would take us to the end of our worksheets, surprisingly. Let's drag this on top, change to average, do the same thing for the moving average. Let's hide this, let's take away the title, and there we have it. We have our basic skeleton. Control S and save. So what we have done in this section is we've built our data visualizations. We have 6 for the KPIs, that's the most recent value, 6 for the trends, and 6 for the moving averages, covering all of our key metrics. So the key here is, as you can see, we created the calculations, we tested, we made sure it worked, we replicated the calculations, and then we've built all of our worksheets. In the next section, we are going to assemble this all together and build our dashboard. So look forward to seeing you there.